Well, folks, there it is. Netanyahu, Prime Minister of the State of Israel, on and off for longer than I've been alive, has finally declared unequivocally, from the river to the sea, Israel shall be free. Yes, the exact same refrain, often repeated by supporters of the Palestinian cause, has now been appropriated by the very same Zionist movement that says that such a declaration, from the river to the sea, is a direct call for genocide. Now, he did say this in Hebrew, and I wonder, because Netanyahu has said things like this in Hebrew before, but it was being simulcast in English with a live translator, not just subtitles, like a live spoken translator. And so normally Netanyahu would not say something like this that's going to be broadcast in English. You can find clips like this all the time throughout the history of him saying very provocative things in Hebrew, even just directly insulting the intelligence of the American voter and talking about how easy Americans are to manipulate. He's willing to say all that in Hebrew, but when he speaks in English, he's he's your greatest ally. But anyway, I've seen two translations of what Netanyahu said. Obviously, the one that's getting the most play is the translation that is verbatim identical to the pro-Palestinian phrase, Israel needs to control all the territory from the river to the sea. I've also seen it translated as Israel needs to control all the territory west of the Jordan River. They mean the exact same thing. It's almost the exact same wording, so whichever translation you go with, it seems like the consensus is, yeah, this is what he said. There will never be any Palestine. The Palestinians are scheduled for extermination, I suppose. The last thing that Netanyahu or any Zionist would want is to actually make Gaza and the West Bank, all of it, part of Israel. That is, unless there was no population there. Because if Gaza and the West Bank were made to be a part of Israel, the people who lived there would be much better off. Because they would have some, not equal rights, but they would have some rights under Israeli law as Arab citizens of Israel. And it's much better to be an Arab citizen of Israel than to be, one of the Palestinian subjects in Gaza or the West Bank. You can vote if you're an Arab, for example. There are some Arabs who have been elected to the Knesset. But obviously, if Israel absorbed all these people into their population, they would no longer have this 80-20 supermajority split of Jews to non-Jews. And it's hard to call yourself the Jewish state if you're a minority in your own country. Obviously, the Jews do not want to be a minority or even, a slim majority in Israel. They want to be a comfortable supermajority. And so the only scenario that is consistent with what Netanyahu is saying is that the populations of these regions must be physically removed, so that then the territory can be annexed by Israel proper without upsetting the politics of Israel. I mean, we've even seen a couple of trial balloon articles in the Western press. I think it was the Wall Street Journal here in the U.S. published an article by some Israeli guy talking about how America needs to take in Palestinian refugees. The reason why Israel would like that is so they can get them out of their hair and then just take over all of their towns and cities, bulldoze them, and then build new, shiny Israeli towns. Bibi's got to get that sick Lebensraum somehow. Already, Israel has managed to drive the population of Gaza City into the south of Gaza, where they are still being pummeled. They are keeping up the pressure on those people to escape by any means necessary. And in the West Bank, where initially it started out as Israeli settlers setting up little Jewish enclaves inside of the West Bank. Now, uh, it's the so-called settlements that surround what's left of the West Bank, and you have all of the Arabs living in tiny little enclaves, and can only really travel from little microscopic municipality to another by going through a series of checkpoints, essentially international borders. And so anyone who has looked at Israel's policy and how it has evolved over the decades, the end goal is clear. They're just working slowly and methodically. Bibi has not gone in, and neither has his predecessors, just gone in and cleansed what is left of these two territories. They cleansed what they already have, certainly, in the 48 war, but what was left, Gaza and the West Bank, they have slowly eroded. They did not just go in, with the TV cameras and all to see and wipe these people out. They've just been doing as much as they think that they could get away with at any point. And in the wake of the October 7th attack and all of the propaganda that came in the aftermath, Netanyahu feels like he has a strong enough hand to move in for the kill. Now, let's contrast this with what, in the modern context, I think from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. A phrase that the Zionists love to be triggered about online. That's what makes this whole thing so hilarious, is Netanyahu, invoking an idea that the Zionists they go nuts over. It's almost as ridiculous as when Mark Levin, he had this phrase he loved to say. He would say, a two-state solution is the final solution. He's saying, if you have a two-state solution, well, then that's going to be the end of all Jews on earth. There's going to be a genocide against Jews if the Palestinians are, ever not under the thumb of Netanyahu. Anyway, as I said earlier, if Israel truly annexed Gaza and the West Bank as is, that would be a net super positive for the people living there, because they would gain all the rights of Arab Israeli citizens. After all, Israel likes to brag that Arab citizens within Israel proper are, relatively free. And so there are a lot of people in these two territories who essentially call Israel's bluff and say, yeah, you know what, that's great. We'd love to be citizens of Israel. We'd love to be a part of Israel. We'd like to be free. And so in the modern context, you could, since it's impossible, for the Palestinians to overrun Israel and drive all the Jews out and take over the whole country, that's not going to happen. The Jews are very entrenched. Early on, I'm sure a lot of them hoped for that. I'm sure they hoped for a time to drive all of the Jews who flooded in after World War II, in the Holocaust, to drive them back to Europe or to Ethiopia or the rest of the Middle East even. But nowadays, they've got all the power. They're firmly entrenched. There's millions of them. They're not going anywhere. And so really the best that these people can hope for is to be made Israeli citizens if they're not given their own sovereign states, which certainly seems like it's never going to happen. After all, Israel, as Netanyahu reiterated today, Israel's not going to allow that. That is not going to be the result of this war. There's never going to be a sovereign Palestinian state after this war. And so that's what I think of when I hear people chant, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. Honestly, do I think that most of them really think out what it means or, what that would mean in a modern context? No, it's a stupid slogan. I mean, my God, it sounds good. That's why people say it. So they're not thinking about it one way or the other for the most part. They're not thinking about it as, are we going to get rid of all the Jews? Totally unrealistic, crackpot idea. Or are we going to be, given equal rights? So with that said, I will see you folks back here in the next one.